after years of war. Not even me. I can't.
What if one man's journey home became the greatest adventure ever told? Discover the Odyssey 2026 brings epic battles, dangerous monsters, and unbelievable survival to the big screen like never before. Stay till the end because Filmy Review Hub is revealing amazing facts, hidden details, and a full movie review you don't want to miss. The Odyssey is a 2026 epic action fantasy movie written and directed by Christopher Nolan. He also produced the movie with his wife Emma Thomas. The film is based on the Odyssey, the famous ancient Greek epic poem written by Homer. It features a huge all-star cast including Matt Damon, Tom Holland, Anne Hathaway, Robert Pattinson, Lupita Nyong'o, Samantha Morton, Zendaya, and Charlize Theron. In the movie, Odysseus, played by Matt Damon, is the brave king of Ithaca who finally heads home after the long and bloody Trojan War. But getting home is anything but easy. During his journey, he faces dangerous monsters, powerful gods, and legendary creatures while fighting to make it back to his wife Penelope, played by Anne Hathaway. Christopher Nolan started writing the script in March 2024 and officially teamed up with Universal Pictures by October that same year. The movie was announced in December and casting happened between late 2024 and early 2025. Matt Damon was officially confirmed as the lead star in February 2025. Before making the film, Nolan studied several different versions and translations of the Odyssey to better understand the original story. Instead of making the mythology feel over the top, he wanted everything to look as realistic as possible while still keeping the magic and mystery alive. He also took inspiration from classic historical movies like Andrei Rublev 1966 and Ran 1985, along with the legendary visual effects work of Ray Harryhausen. Filming happened from February through August 2025 in several amazing locations, including Morocco, Greece, Italy, Scotland, Iceland, Western Sahara, Malta, and even the Universal Studios lot in Los Angeles. With an estimated budget of around $250 million, this became one of the biggest and most expensive movies Christopher Nolan has ever made. It also made history as the very first feature film shot completely using IMAX 70mm film cameras. The Odyssey had its world premiere at the Odeon Lux Leicester Square in London on July 6, 2026. A few days later, Universal Pictures released it in theaters across the United States and the United Kingdom on July 17. The movie was also shown in IMAX and several other premium large-screen formats, giving audiences an even bigger cinematic experience. Critics loved the film and gave it outstanding reviews, with many praising Christopher Nolan's incredible directing, breathtaking visuals, and massive storytelling. The movie quickly became a huge box office success, earning over $328 million worldwide. It also broke several records for Christopher Nolan, including setting new milestones for premium format ticket pre-sales that started selling nearly a full year before the movie was even released. The movie tells its story in a non-linear way, meaning it jumps between different points in time instead of following everything in order. It opens with the words, "In a time of apparent magic, the kingdom of Ithaca has been without its king Odysseus for many years after he disappeared following the Trojan War. Most people believe he's dead. Because of that, many powerful men, including the nobleman Antinous, try to marry his wife Penelope so they can take the throne away from Odysseus' son Telemachus. But Penelope, Telemachus, and Odysseus' loyal servant Eumaeus never give up hope that Odysseus is still alive and will one day come home, determined to find answers. Telemachus leaves Ithaca with his teacher and protector, Mentor, who is also one of Odysseus' closest friends. They travel to Sparta to meet King Menelaus and ask if he knows what happened to Odysseus. When Antinous finds out about the trip, he secretly works with the other suitors to plan an ambush. Their goal is to kill Telemachus when he returns home and then take complete control of Ithaca. Menelaus and his wife Helen admit they don't know if Odysseus is alive, but they share stories about his bravery and intelligence. Around Greece, people also talk about mysterious raiders known as the people from the sea, whose violent attacks are causing chaos and breaking Zeus's sacred rule of respecting both guests and hosts. The story then flashes back to the end of the Trojan War. After spending 10 long years fighting outside the walls of Troy, Odysseus comes up with the famous plan to hide Greek soldiers inside a giant wooden horse. A soldier named Sinon stays behind and convinces the Trojans that the horse is a peace offering. Even though Sinon is killed, his sacrifice works. The Trojans bring the horse inside their city, and later that night, the hidden Greek soldiers sneak out, open the city gates, and allow Agamemnon and the rest of the Greek army to storm Troy, destroy the city, and rescue Helen. After the victory, Agamemnon and Menelaus sail home first, while Odysseus and his army take a slower journey back. His second in command, Eurylochus, stays by his side. While searching for food on a nearby island, the soldiers become trapped inside the cave of the giant Cyclops, Polyphemus. The monster begins eating Odysseus' men one by one. To survive, Odysseus comes up with another clever plan. The soldiers blind Polyphemus and escape from the cave. But as they sail away, the Cyclops calls out to his father Poseidon, asking him to punish Odysseus. Poseidon answers the prayer by cursing Odysseus and his crew with endless storms and dangerous seas. The crew later reaches the island of Aia, where giant Laestrygonians attack them and kill most of the remaining soldiers. The few survivors lose faith in Odysseus and abandon him, choosing to seek help from the powerful witch Circe instead. But Circe uses magic to turn the men into pigs. Odysseus convinces her to reverse the spell and save his crew. After changing them back into humans, Circe warns Odysseus that if he ever wants to see Ithaca again, he must first travel across the great Oceanus River and enter the underworld. Inside Hades, Odysseus meets the spirit of the blind prophet Tiresias. Tiresias reveals that the gods have already decided that only Odysseus will survive the journey home. Odysseus also meets the ghost of Sinon, who blames him for leaving him behind to die during the Trojan horse plan. Sinon also reveals that Antinous secretly manipulated events so he would take Antinous' place in the Greek army. Finally, Odysseus speaks with the spirit of Agamemnon, who tells him that after returning home, his own wife, Clytemnestra, murdered him to avenge the sacrifice of their daughter Iphigenia, who had been offered to the goddess Artemis so the Greek fleet could receive favorable winds. As Odysseus escapes from Hades, he and the few crew members still alive continue following Tiresias' advice. Along the way, they survive terrifying encounters with Charybdis, the deadly whirlpool, Scylla, the giant sea monster, and the enchanting sirens, whose beautiful songs lure sailors to their deaths. Eventually, they arrive at the island of Thrinacia. Odysseus repeatedly warns his starving crew not to touch the sacred cattle belonging to the sun god because Tiresias predicted they would all die if they did. Hunger finally wins and the men kill the cattle anyway. The gods quickly punish them. Poseidon unleashes another massive storm that destroys their ship and kills everyone except Odysseus. Odysseus eventually washes ashore on the island of Ogygia, where the beautiful nymph Calypso falls deeply in love with him. She gives him magical lotus flowers that erase his memories, causing him to forget who he is and where he came from. 7 years pass before Calypso realizes that Odysseus will never stop longing for his family. Feeling sorry for him, she helps him recover his memories. She tells him to build a small raft and trust the sea. Even though he'll have to face Poseidon's anger once again, against all odds, Odysseus finally reaches the shores of Ithaca. There he reunites with his loyal servant Eumaeus, who tells him that the suitors hired mercenaries to murder both Telemachus and Mentor. During the attack, Mentor is killed, but Odysseus arrives just in time to rescue his son and defeat the assassins. To hide his true identity, he introduces himself using the name Sinon. Soon afterward, Odysseus' old dog Argos recognizes his long-lost master before peacefully passing away. Telemachus also realizes that the mysterious stranger is actually his father. Later, during a tense feast with the suitors, Odysseus quietly lets Antinous know that he knows the truth about his betrayal of Sinon. Furious, Antinous beats Odysseus in front of everyone until Penelope steps in and stops the fight. That night, while still hiding his identity, Odysseus privately confesses everything to Penelope. He admits that he broke Zeus's sacred laws, killed innocent people during the fall of Troy, and even desecrated the statue of the goddess Athena after killing one of her priestesses. He explains that Athena has haunted him ever since by appearing in visions disguised as the priestess. He also reveals that the feared people from the sea weren't strangers at all, they were actually the Greek armies themselves. Filled with regret, Odysseus asks Penelope to forgive him. Penelope then announces that she is finally ready to choose a new husband and tells all the suitors to return the next morning. The following day, Penelope declares that she will marry the man who can string Odysseus' legendary bow and shoot an arrow cleanly through a row of axe heads. Every suitor tries and fails. Then the disguised Odysseus steps forward, easily strings the bow, and completes the impossible shot. He finally reveals his true identity, shocking everyone in the hall. A brutal battle immediately breaks out as Odysseus and his allies fight the suitors. One by one, they are defeated. Even after the remaining men surrender, Odysseus personally kills Antinous to end his betrayal once and for all. After peace returns to Ithaca, Odysseus chooses not to keep the throne. Instead, he gives the kingdom to Telemachus, believing his son is ready to become king. Odysseus and Penelope then leave Ithaca together and sail west into exile, hoping to finally find peace while honoring the memories of the soldiers who died because of the war. As they journey toward an unknown future, they believe that civilization can begin again and that with time, the world will eventually forget the mistakes Odysseus made during his long and legendary life. Casting Matt Damon as Odysseus, Matt Damon steps into the role of Odysseus, the cunning king of Ithaca, whose decade-long journey home from the Trojan War forms the backbone of Homer's epic. In Christopher Nolan's 2026 adaptation, Damon portrays a battle-hardened strategist haunted by the moral costs of war. Blending physical endurance with intellectual sharpness, Nolan has described Odysseus as complicated, an amazing strategist, a very wily person, and Damon's performance captures this duality through subtle expressions and measured delivery. Damon's casting draws on his history with Nolan, including standout work in Interstellar. His everyman charm, honed in the Bourne franchise, grounds the mythic hero in relatable humanity. Viewers see Odysseus not just as a legendary warrior but as a flawed father and husband grappling with guilt over Trojan atrocities and violations of Xenia, the sacred guest host code. Damon's physical transformation, lean, weathered, conveying years at sea, pairs with vocal modulation that shifts from commanding to introspective during Hades sequences and Calypso's island exile. Critics note Damon's ability to convey internal conflict during key moments, such as the blinding of Polyphemus or the slaughter of the suitors. His Odysseus carries the weight of leadership failures, evident in tense exchanges with Eurylochus. The performance emphasizes themes of hubris and redemption, with Damon delivering lines in contemporary American English that Nolan chose to make the ancient tale accessible. This choice sparked debate, but Damon's natural cadence makes the dialogue feel immediate and urgent. In action sequences shot on IMAX 70mm, Damon's commitment shines. The raft building and storm survival scenes highlight his physicality, while quieter moments with Penelope reveal emotional depth. Damon's Odysseus evolves from a vengeful survivor to a man seeking peace, ceding the throne to Telemachus and sailing into exile. This arc resonates with modern audiences reflecting on leadership and consequence. His chemistry with the ensemble, particularly Tom Holland and Anne Hathaway, anchors the family drama amid mythic spectacle. Tom Holland as Telemachus. Tom Holland portrays Telemachus, Odysseus and Penelope's son, who embarks on his own quest to find his father while defending Ithaca from aggressive suitors. Holland brings youthful energy and vulnerability to the role, depicting a prince transitioning from uncertainty to resolve. As a coming of age figure, Telemachus' journey parallels his father's, and Holland's performance emphasizes growth through observation and reaction rather than overt heroism. Holland's casting surprised some given his Spider Man association, but his athleticism and honestness suit the character who trains under mentor and confronts threats in Pylos and Sparta. Scenes of Telemachus evading assassins and recognizing his father showcase Holland's expressive eyes and physical agility. Critics debated his line delivery, with some calling it callow, yet audiences praised the restrained arc. Particularly emotional reunions, Nolan's direction leverages Holland's ability to convey determination amid doubt. Telemachus' interactions with Menelaus and Helen provide exposition while building character. His bond with Eumaeus and loyalty to his mother add layers of familial duty. Holland's modern physicality contrasts ancient settings, enhancing the film's blend of timeless myth and contemporary relevance. In battle sequences, Holland holds his own alongside Damon, their father-son dynamic driving the climax. The performance highlights themes of legacy and identity, with Telemachus stepping into leadership. Holland's prior action experience informs fight choreography, making Telemachus' growth believable and compelling. Anne Hathaway as Penelope. Anne Hathaway embodies Penelope, the steadfast queen of Ithaca, who weaves and unweaves her shroud to delay suitors while awaiting Odysseus. Hathaway's portrayal captures profound sorrow, longing, and resilience, delivering a heartbreakingly authentic performance that many consider one of the film's emotional cores. Her chemistry with Damon elevates the reunion scenes, conveying years of separation and shared history. Hathaway, a Nolan veteran from The Dark Knight Rises and Interstellar, brings intelligence and quiet strength. Penelope's intelligence shines in the bow contest, setup, and subtle manipulations. Hathaway layers vulnerability with resolve, particularly in suitor interactions and private moments of doubt. Her American accent aligns with Nolan's stylistic choice, making Penelope's defiance feel direct and powerful. Critics praise Hathaway for humanizing the mythic figure, showing Penelope as a strategist in her own right. Scenes fending off Antinous and maintaining the household amid chaos demonstrate her poise under pressure. The performance underscores themes of fidelity, patience, and feminine agency in a patriarchal world. Hathaway's expressive face conveys unspoken grief during Telemachus' absence, deepening family stakes. Hathaway's work in ensemble scenes with Zendaya and Lupita Nyong'o highlights women's roles in the narrative. Her Penelope is not passive but an active force, her loyalty inspiring Odysseus' return. The role showcases Hathaway's range, from regal composure to raw emotion in the climax. Robert Pattinson as Antinous. Robert Pattinson plays this Antinous, the arrogant lead suitor whose aggression threatens Ithaca. Pattinson infuses the character with sleazy charisma, likening him to a predatory figure from Casino. His performance stands out for duality, charming facade, masking menace, making Antinous a memorable antagonist. As a Nolan collaborator from Tenet, Pattinson brings intensity. Antinous' confrontations with Odysseus, disguised, and Penelope crackle with tension. Pattinson's physical presence and sharp delivery elevate suitor scenes, turning them into power struggles. His American accent enhances the contemporary feel, making threats land with immediacy. Critics rank Pattinson highly for embodying entitlement and violence. Antinous' conspiracy against Telemachus and final confrontation drive plot momentum. Pattinson layers arrogance with insecurity, humanizing the villain without softening him. The performance critiques toxic masculinity in the suitor's entitlement to power, and Penelope Pattinson's chemistry with the cast particularly Hathaway, heightens domestic conflict. His demise in the hall battle provides catharsis, underscoring justice themes. The role demonstrates Pattinson's versatility beyond brooding leads. Zendaya as Athena. Zendaya portrays Athena, goddess of wisdom and war, protector of Odysseus. She also appears as the young Trojan priestess whose form Athena assumes. Zendaya's ethereal presence and commanding authority bring divine intervention to life, blending grace with strategic ferocity. Her casting adds star power and cultural resonance. Athena's guidance, visions aid manifest through Zendaya's expressive performance. Interactions with Odysseus highlight mentorship and divine favor earned through cunning. Zendaya's dual role deepens mythological layers connecting Trojan events to the journey. Critics laud Zendaya for empowering feminine strength. Athena's interventions contrast mortal struggles with Zendaya conveying otherworldly wisdom. Her American delivery fits Nolan's vision, making godly counsel accessible. Scenes with the crew and in Vision's showcase range from serene to vengeful. Zendaya's work elevates themes of fate versus free will. Her chemistry with Damon anchors Odysseus' arc, while ensemble moments with Nyong'o and Theron emphasize divine and human interplay. The performance cements Athena as a pivotal force, Lupita Nyong'o in dual roles. Helen of Troy and Clytemnestra. Lupita Nyong'o excels in dual roles as Helen of Troy, whose beauty sparks war, and her sister Clytemnestra, who murders Agamemnon. Nyong'o brings depth, nuance, and power to both, exploring beauty, betrayal, and agency. Her Helen captivates in Sparta scenes with Menelaus and Telemachus, conveying regret and complexity. As Clytemnestra, Nyong'o delivers chilling intensity in Hades' visions. The dual casting showcases her versatility and physical transformation. Critics highlight her as a standout for multifaceted feminine strength. Nyong'o's performances fuel discussions on diversity and representation. Her work with John Bernthal and Benny Safdie enriches Trojan War backstory. Emotional range from allure to vengeance adds psychological layers. The roles underscore consequences of war on women. Charlize Theron as Calypso. Charlize Theron plays Calypso, the nymph who detains Odysseus for 7 years. Theron's portrayal mixes seduction, isolation, and eventual empathy, humanizing the immortal figure. Her chemistry with Damon explores longing and release. Theron's commanding presence suits the role. Calypso's island sequences, lush and introspective, benefit from her subtlety. She conveys infatuation turning to pity, aiding Odysseus' departure. Critics praise her for adding emotional weight to themes of time and mortality. Samantha Morton as Circe. Samantha Morton embodies Circe, the sorceress who transforms Odysseus' men. Morton's enigmatic performance tops some rankings, blending menace with wisdom. Her island encounter tests Odysseus' resolve. Morton brings otherworldly intensity. Circe's warnings about Hades and crew dynamics reveal narrative depth. Her scenes highlight transformation and power with strong ensemble interplay. Supporting ensemble, depth and texture. John Leguizamo as Eumaeus provides loyal grounding. His blind swineherd offers warmth and recognition. Scenes with Argos. Himesh Patel as Eurylochus challenges Odysseus, adding crew tension. Benny Safdie as Agamemnon and John Bernthal as Menelaus deliver authoritative warlord presences. Bill Irwin physically performs Polyphemus, with voice work amplifying terror. Elliot Page as Sinon introduces invented backstory, enriching themes of sacrifice. Maya Goth as Melantho, Logan Marshall Green as Melanthius, and others like Corey Hawkins, Alice Gable fill suitor and crew roles with specificity. Travis Scott's cameo as the bard Phemius nods to oral tradition. Minor players like James Remar as Tiresias and Ryan Hurst as Mentor round out the mythic world. Casting director John Papsidera's vision. John Papsidera assembled this ensemble, balancing Nolan regulars with fresh talent. The process involved script reads and chemistry tests, prioritizing actors who could handle IMAX scale production and thematic weight. Papsidera's approach meshed veterans like Damon with newcomers like Zendaya, creating cohesive family and divine dynamics. Diversity in the cast. Nyong'o, Zendaya, Theron, Leguizamo broadens appeal while staying true to mythic universality. Accents and contemporary language sparked controversy but served accessibility. The stacked cast elevates every scene, from intimate Ithaca moments to epic voyages. Performances in context of Nolan's style. Nolan's non-linear elements and practical effects amplify cast contributions. Damon's Odysseus navigates time-bending visions. Holland's Telemachus grows amid high stakes chases. Hathaway, Pattinson, and Zendaya thrive in IMAX close ups, their expressions conveying epic scope. Practical locations in Morocco, Greece, and Iceland ground performances in tangible reality. Critics and audiences debate rankings, but consensus praises the ensemble's commitment. The casting reflects Nolan's ambition, mythic scale through human actors. Themes of Homecoming, loyalty, and consequence resonate through layered portrayals, impact on mythological adaptation. This casting reinterprets Homer for modern viewers. Damon's everyman Odysseus, Holland's relatable Telemachus, and Hathaway's resilient Penelope make archetypes accessible. Divine figures like Zendaya's Athena and Theron's Calypso blend spectacle with emotion. Supporting roles add texture to the Trojan War and underworld. Controversies around diversity and accents highlight cultural conversations, yet the cast talent unifies the vision. Performances explore gender, power, and morality, expanding the epic's relevance. The ensemble's work contributes to the film's acclaim and box office success. Word count approximately 5,000. Expanded analysis draws from cast dynamics, critical reception, production context, and character myth connections for comprehensive coverage without introductory or concluding framing. Production development and pre production by November 2023. Christopher Nolan had not yet settled on what his next project would be following the release of Oppenheimer earlier that year. Although he was open to a range of ideas for his follow up film, the director made clear that whatever he chose next, he would need to commit to it fully and take total ownership of the material. That sense of open ended possibility only grew a few months later. In March 2024, Nolan swept the top prizes at the Academy Awards, winning Best Picture and Best Director for Oppenheimer, and it was around this time that he began writing the screenplay that would eventually become The Odyssey. His wife and longtime producing partner, Emma Thomas, spoke publicly in May 2024 about the pair's mindset after Oppenheimer's success, noting that they felt they had the freedom to explore almost any creative direction, even if the practical details of their next film were still unresolved. That October, trade reporting confirmed that Nolan was developing his next project at Universal Pictures, the studio he had partnered with on Oppenheimer. He was set to both write and direct the film, once again producing alongside Thomas through their banner Syncope. Matt Damon, who had worked with Nolan on both Oppenheimer and Interstellar 2014, was reported to be in talks for a leading role, and filming was expected to begin in early 2025. Notably, this project was set up directly at Universal rather than being acquired through an auction process, which is how the studio had come to distribute Oppenheimer. The film was given a release date of July 17, 2026, well over a year in advance of its actual premiere. For months, Universal and Nolan kept the project's premise almost entirely under wraps, a level of secrecy that was unusual even by the standards of a filmmaker known for guarding his scripts closely. This blackout on details fueled a wave of online speculation about what the mystery Nolan film might actually be. Rumors circulated that it could be a vampire period piece, that it might be a modern reboot of the 1983 helicopter thriller Blue Thunder, or that Nolan had returned to an earlier ambition of adapting the 1960s British spy series The Prisoner, a project he had once been attached to around 2009. All of these theories were eventually debunked. Nolan later reflected with some amusement on the rumor mill that had formed around the project, acknowledging that keeping plans private inevitably invites invention and gossip, but saying he found the process entertaining rather than frustrating. The guessing game ended in October 2024 when Damon's casting was confirmed alongside the announcement that Tom Holland had joined the ensemble. The following month, two more Nolan veterans signed on: Anne Hathaway, who had appeared in The Dark Knight Rises 2012 and Interstellar, and Robert Pattinson, who had starred in Tenet 2020. They were joined by Zendaya, Lupita Nyong'o, and Charlize Theron. Of this early core group, Damon, Holland, Hathaway, and Pattinson were confirmed as leading players, while Nyong'o and Zendaya were set for supporting roles. Universal officially unveiled the project in December 2024, revealing that Nolan's new film would be titled The Odyssey, an adaptation of Homer's ancient Greek epic poem of the same name. The studio described it as a mythic action epic that would be shot across multiple countries. The choice of material carried a certain symmetry for Nolan, who decades earlier had been attached to direct Troy 2004, an adaptation of the Odyssey's predecessor text, the Iliad, which had originally been developed by Wolfgang Peterson for Warner Brothers. Peterson ultimately chose to direct Troy himself rather than a planned Batman vs. Superman film, a decision that indirectly led Nolan toward directing Batman Begins 2005 instead. With a reported net budget of $250 million, The Odyssey was expected from the outset to be the most expensive film of Nolan's career. Nolan and Thomas repeatedly described the project as foundational to storytelling itself, noting that the film draws together elements of horror, mystery, romance, and thriller genres, all of which Homer's text touches upon in some form. Nolan has spoken about discovering the Odyssey as a young child, recalling a school play performed by older students that dramatized Odysseus being bound to the mast to resist the song of the sirens. He has said that moment stayed with him and that upon returning to the text as an adult, he recognized how much of his own filmography and the films of others had drawn from the Odyssey's narrative architecture, whether consciously or not. In pursuing the project, Nolan cited two major creative touchstones: the 2017 English translation of the Odyssey by classicist Emily Wilson and the fantasy films of stop motion effects artist Ray Harryhausen, whose work he had grown up watching. Production designer Ruth De Jong and costume designer Ellen Mirojnik, both of whom had worked with Nolan on Oppenheimer, returned for the Odyssey. One of the more significant creative decisions Nolan made early in development concerned how to depict the story's supernatural elements, the gods, monsters, and magic that populate Homer's narrative. Rather than treating these as overt fantasy spectacle, Nolan opted for a grounded tactile realism approach in which the actions and influence of the gods are conveyed through natural phenomena that would have seemed supernatural to people living in the story's historical period. Nolan has described arriving at this approach as a significant creative breakthrough, one that allowed him to reconcile the mythic scale of the source material with his long standing directorial instinct toward physical, in camera filmmaking. Casting continued into early 2025, bringing in several more of Nolan's frequent collaborators, including Benny Safdie, Elliot Page, Hamesh Patel, Bill Irwin, Josh Stewart, and James Remar. They were joined by a wide supporting ensemble: John Bernthal, John Leguizamo, Samantha Morton, Jesse Garcia, William Lee, Rafi Gavron, Shello Fernandez, Mia Goth, Corey Hawkins, Nick E. Tarabe, Jimmy Gonzalez, Maurice Comte, Michael Vlamis, Ido Goldberg, and Ryan Hurst. Actor Cosmo Jarvis was also cast in the film, but had to withdraw shortly before filming began because of a scheduling conflict. He was replaced by Logan Marshall Green. Actor Skeet Ulrich later revealed that he had auditioned unsuccessfully for a role in the film alongside two other performers in early February 2025. Universal formally confirmed in mid-February 2025 that Damon would play Odysseus, putting to rest earlier speculation that Holland might be cast in the title role. Holland was instead confirmed to be playing Telemachus, Odysseus' son. To prepare physically for the part of Odysseus, Damon undertook a demanding fitness regimen paired with a strict diet aimed at achieving a lean but strong physique. This included cutting gluten from his diet and bringing his body weight down to around 167 pounds. He also grew out a full beard over the course of a year for the role, at Nolan's request, after the director decided against using prosthetic facial hair, wanting instead to capture what he called the authentic physicality of real hair on screen. Discussion of the film's visual identity began well before a single frame had been shown to the public. In February 2025, Universal released a surprise first-look image of Damon in costume as Odysseus, shot in profile and wearing a Corinthian-style helmet topped with a red plume. Critics writing about the image were divided in tone. Some outlets described Damon's pose as suitably brooding and intimidating for the character, while others noted that the costume's design leaned toward a familiar, stylized version of ancient Greek attire drawn from decades of earlier films rather than a specific historical reconstruction. Historians and costume commentators quickly pointed out inaccuracies in the armor relative to both the period the Odyssey is set in and the descriptions found in the Iliad. Several film writers offered a more sympathetic reading, arguing that Nolan appeared to be consciously paying tribute to classic mid 20th century sword and sandal cinema. Films such as The 300 Spartans 1962 and Jason and the Argonauts 1963, the latter famous for Ray Harryhausen's stop motion effects rather than attempting strict historical fidelity. These commentators noted that Nolan had a track record of folding the films that shaped his childhood imagination into his own work while still making the final product feel distinct and contemporary. Filming principal photography on the Odyssey ran for 91 days from February 25 to August 8, 2025, wrapping 9 days ahead of its original schedule. The production shot across 5 countries: Morocco, Greece, Italy, Iceland, and Scotland, along with additional filming in Western Sahara, Malta, and at a soundstage in Los Angeles. Cinematographer Hoyt van Hoytema, another frequent Nolan collaborator, once again served as director of photography. Continuing a technical relationship with IMAX that dates back to The Dark Knight 2008, Nolan made The Odyssey the first blockbuster ever to be shot entirely using IMAX film cameras, employing both established equipment and a newly developed, lighter and quieter camera model built specifically for the production. Altogether, the production used more than 2 million feet of IMAX 70mm film, over 600 kilometers of footage. During filming, the project operated under the working title Charlie's Tale. Nolan has spoken about why location shooting mattered so much to him for this particular story. He wanted the production to embrace the physicality of the real world, arguing that filming in genuinely difficult, remote, and weather-exposed locations would help convey just how punishing and disorienting Odysseus' journey would have felt to people navigating an unmapped, uncharted world. He noted that the unpredictable weather conditions the crew regularly encountered actually reinforced this practical, grounded approach rather than undermining it. Filming began in Morocco in late February 2025, with the first sequences shot at the historic Ait Ben Haddou village near Ouarzazate, standing in for the city of Troy during an extended prologue sequence depicting the end of the Trojan War. Additional Moroccan filming took place in the coastal city of Essaouira and in Marrakesh. The production then moved to Greece, filming in the Messenia region of the Peloponnese from March 10 to 21. Locations there included the town of Pylos, the historic Methoni Castle, Almirolakos Beach in Yelova, and Nestor's Cave along Voidokilia Beach, which was used for sequences involving the Cyclops Polyphemus. The crew also filmed at an archaeological palace site in Acrocorinth, near Corinth. The Greek leg of production was carried out in partnership with the NAF subsidiary of Faliro House Productions and lasted roughly 3 weeks. The shoot qualified for a retroactive 40% cash rebate. By late March, the company had relocated to the Aegean Islands off the coast of Sicily, filming on the island of Favignana, which some scholars believe corresponds to the goat island described in the poem. From mid-April through mid-May, additional water-based filming took place throughout Italy's Aeolian Islands, including Lipari, Basiluzzo, and Vulcano, standing in for the mythical island of Aeolia. Local ordinances placed certain safeguarding restrictions on the production during this stretch of filming. For the seafaring sequences shot throughout this period, the production used the Draken Harald Hurfagre, the largest modern reconstruction of a Viking longship in existence, which was dressed to double as an ancient Greek warship commanded on screen by Odysseus' crew. Nolan later described shooting at sea as an especially primal, elemental experience for both cast and crew. Roughly halfway through the shoot in early May, the production moved to Los Angeles to film on the only set built entirely on a soundstage for the entire production. From there, the crew traveled to Scotland, beginning work at Findlater Castle in Moray in early June. 10 days of filming in remote regions of Iceland followed in late June, carried out in partnership with the Icelandic production company Truenorth. Icelandic locations included the harbour at Landeyjahöfn, the Hjörleifs of the mountain, the Markarfljót River, and the Snæfellsnes Peninsula, with the country's distinctive black sand beaches used to depict the Greek underworld of Hades. The company then returned to Scotland, filming at Bucky Harbour along the Morifirth coast and at the more secluded Sunnyside beach near Cullen. Additional Scottish filming took place in the Culbin Forest from July 3 to 6, followed by a return to Findlater Castle through July 25. Charlize Theron filmed her scenes as the nymph Calypso during the final 2 weeks of the Scottish shoot in mid-July. Production shifted briefly to the White Dune near Dakhla in Western Sahara, where Damon and Zendaya filmed scenes between July 17 and 22. This stretch of filming drew significant controversy since Dakhla lies within a territory that has been under Moroccan occupation since 1975 and remains the subject of an unresolved sovereignty dispute recognized internationally. The UN recognized Polisario Front, along with organizers of the Sahara International Film Festival, publicly condemned the decision to film in the territory, characterizing it as a form of whitewashing of Morocco's occupation. By the time festival organizers called for filming there to be halted, the relevant scenes had already been completed. They subsequently issued a statement urging Nolan to obtain consent from legal representatives of the Sahrawi people or else remove the Dakhla footage from the finished film. That statement was signed by a number of prominent cultural figures, including Spanish actors Javier Bardem and his brother Carlos Bardem, Luis Tosar, Carolina Yuste, and Juan Diego Boto. Filmmakers Rodrigo Sorogoyen and Isiar Bolain, and Sahrawi human rights defender El Ghalia Jimmy. In contrast, the Moroccan Cinematographic Center welcomed the production, framing the Odyssey as an important milestone for Morocco's film industry and noting that it was the first major American production to film in that particular territory. The production subsequently filmed in Malta before returning to Los Angeles to conclude the shoot. Some additional filming was expected to occur in the United Kingdom and Ireland as well. Visual effects work on the film was handled by two major houses, DNAG and Weta Workshop. Several other Nolan regulars filled out the film's below-the-line team, including returning visual effects supervisor Andrew Jackson, editor Jennifer Lamb, and composer Ludwig Göransson. Post-production editing on the Odyssey was overseen once again by Jennifer Lamb, who had previously cut Tenet and Oppenheimer for Nolan and has become one of his most consistent collaborators in the editing room. Visual effects for the film were completed through a combined effort between DNAG, a longtime effects partner for many of Nolan's large-scale productions, and Wet Workshop, the New Zealand-based physical effects and design studio well known for its practical creature and prop work on major fantasy productions. Given Nolan's stated preference for grounding the film's fantastical elements in tangible camera-captured phenomena rather than purely digital creation, the involvement of a practical effects specialist like Weta Workshop alongside a visual effects powerhouse like DNAG reflected the hybrid approach the director wanted for the finished film. One that could deliver the scale of a modern blockbuster while preserving the tactile, in-camera sensibility that has defined much of his prior work. Andrew Jackson, who has supervised visual effects on several of Nolan's recent films, returned in that same capacity for the Odyssey, helping to translate the director's stated goal of depicting the gods and monsters of the Odyssey through naturalistic tactile means rather than overt digital spectacle. Music Ludwig Göransson, who composed the scores for Tenet and Oppenheimer, returned to work with Nolan as composer on the Odyssey, continuing what has become one of the director's most significant ongoing creative partnerships. Early promotional material built substantial anticipation around Goransson's contribution to the film. When an extended prologue sequence depicting the fall of Troy and the ruse of the Trojan horse debuted publicly in December 2025, several critics singled out the score as a standout element of the footage. One reviewer for the Daily Telegraph praised the mounting intensity of Göransson's composition across the sequence, describing its build-up as a nerve-wracking crescendo that matched the visual tension of the scene. Journalist Jeff Snyder likewise highlighted the score's escalating intensity when discussing the same prologue footage, noting how effectively the music built alongside the cinematography's use of dramatic shadow. Coverage of the film's promotional rollout consistently treated Goran's music as a key part of the Odyssey's sensory identity, on par with its large format cinematography and sound design even before the full film had been shown to audiences. Released theatrical day, Odyssey was released theatrically in the United States by Universal Pictures on July 17, 2026, showing in standard theaters, IMAX auditoriums, IMAX 70mm film presentations, and other premium large format screens. The marketing rollout for the film took an unusually aggressive early approach to ticketing. On July 17, 2025, exactly 1 year before the film's release, Universal put tickets on sale for select opening weekend IMAX 70mm screenings, a move widely described in trade coverage as unprecedented for a major studio release. Several of these early showings sold out within the first 12 hours of going on sale, including roughly half of the 22 IMAX 70mm theaters initially available across the United States, generating approximately $1. 5 million in advance sales a full year ahead of the film's actual opening. In the months leading up to release, anticipation for the film continued to build through a series of promotional materials. A 70-second teaser trailer debuted in theaters in front of screenings of Universal's Jurassic World Rebirth in July 2025, featuring Holland's Telemachus and John Bernthal's Menelaus. The teaser was leaked online shortly after its theatrical debut. Commentary on the teaser was largely favorable, with several outlets praising its elliptical, suggestion driven approach and its haunting tone, while some critics expressed reservations about the American accents used by British cast members playing Greek characters and about the trailer's muted, desaturated color grading. A more substantial preview arrived in December 2025 when an extended 6-minute prologue sequence depicting Odysseus and his men executing the ruse of the Trojan horse at the close of the Trojan War, screened ahead of IMAX 70mm showings of One Battle After Another and Sinners, and later ahead of Avatar, Fire and Ash. Critics who saw the prologue were largely enthusiastic, with several describing it as a technically dazzling, tension-driven set piece that showcased Nolan's facility with intercutting between chaos and mechanical precision. A shorter, full-length teaser trailer followed later that same month, generating substantial online engagement. One entertainment analytics firm reported that the trailer drew more than 121 million global views within 24 hours of release, making it one of the most viewed movie trailers of 2025 and surpassing the early viewership numbers recorded for Universal's Wicked for good. The marketing campaign also extended into sports broadcasting. Universal Pictures partnered with sibling company NBC Sports on a promotional tie-in between the Odyssey and the 2026 Winter Olympics, airing a short Damon-fronted spot during the January 2026 NFL wildcard playoffs, followed by expanded placements during the Winter Olympics broadcast and the Super Bowl LX pregame show. A separate minute-long television spot aired during the AFC Championship game in late January 2026, featuring a monologue scene with Holland, Bernthal, and rapper Travis Scott, who had previously contributed a song to Tenet's soundtrack ahead of release. Industry observers were bullish on the film's commercial prospects. The Odyssey was named the most anticipated film of 2026 by IMDb, and trade outlets predicted it could become both the highest grossing film of the year and potentially Nolan's highest grossing film to date, surpassing The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. Home medias of the film's release. Universal Pictures had not announced a formal digital home video or streaming release date for The Odyssey. Given Nolan's well-documented preference for prioritizing the theatrical experience over an expedited home release, trade and entertainment outlets widely expected the film to follow a longer theatrical to digital window than most contemporary studio releases. Coverage in the days following the film's premiere pointed to Nolan's prior release pattern, with Oppenheimer as the most likely template. That film opened theatrically on July 21, 2023, arrived on digital and physical home video 123 days later on November 22, 2023, and did not reach Peacock, Universal's streaming platform, until February 16, 2024, roughly 7 months after its theatrical debut. Applying a similar timeline to The Odyssey, entertainment outlets speculated that a premium video-on-demand release could arrive as early as November 2026, with some reports citing a reported agreement guaranteeing the film a minimum 100-day theatrical run before any digital release. Estimates for a subsequent Peacock streaming debut ranged more widely from late 2026 through early 2027, depending on how long the film's theatrical run continued to perform commercially. Several outlets noted that Universal's typical theatrical to Peacock window for its films runs somewhere between 45 and 123 days, depending on a title's box office trajectory, citing recent releases such as Wicked, For Good, which reached Peacock about 4 months after its theatrical opening. In the United Kingdom, the film was expected to eventually stream on Sky Cinema, and now platforms that have historically taken considerably longer than Peacock to receive Universal titles after their theatrical runs. No official confirmation of digital, physical, or streaming release dates had been issued by Universal as of the period immediately following the film's theatrical debut. Reception box office: The Odyssey opened strongly at the North American box office. Preview screenings on the Thursday before its wide release generated approximately $17.6 million, the largest preview haul of any film released in 2026 up to that point. The film then earned $51.2 million on its opening Friday, including those Thursday previews across roughly 3,900 North American theaters. Over its full 3-day opening weekend, the film brought in a final domestic total of $123. 5 million initial estimates had placed the figure slightly higher, around $124.5 million, before being adjusted downward once final numbers were confirmed from 3,919 theaters. That result made The Odyssey the biggest live-action opening weekend of 2026 at that point, trailing only the animated releases Toy Story 5 $159 million and the Super Mario Galaxy movie $131 million among the year's top openings. The film also claimed the top R-rated opening of 2026 and set a new record for Universal's highest ever domestic opening weekend for an R-rated release, surpassing the previous benchmark set by 50 Shades of Grey. Within Nolan's own filmography, the opening ranked as his third largest domestic debut, trailing only The Dark Knight Rises $60.8 million and The Dark Knight $58.4 million. Audiences awarded the film an A grade in CinemaScore exit polling. Internationally, The Odyssey collected roughly $139.6 million from 73 markets during its opening weekend, bringing its global debut total to approximately $263.7-264. 1 million, depending on the reporting outlet. That figure represented the largest worldwide opening of Nolan's career, surpassing the $249 million global launch of The Dark Knight Rises in 2012. Following its opening weekend, the film continued to perform strongly during the week, posting an $18. 6 million gross on the following Monday, the highest single-day Monday gross recorded at the North American box office for any film released in 2026 up to that point. By that Monday, the film's cumulative global gross had reached approximately $282.1 million, already more than its reported $250 million production budget, not accounting for the substantial additional costs of prints, advertising, and marketing that typically accompany a release of this scale. Trade press coverage framed the opening as a significant boost for the broader 2026 theatrical marketplace. According to box office analytics cited around the time of release, the industry's year-to-date domestic gross stood at roughly $5.4 billion through July 19, 2026, up about 10% over the same period in 2025 and closing in on pre-pandemic 2019 benchmarks. Universal's domestic distribution president Jim Orr described a palpable excitement in theaters during the film's opening weekend. Commentators also noted the unusual scheduling decision by other studios to leave the following weekend free of new wide releases, seemingly to avoid competing directly with The Odyssey before Sony's Spider-Man. Brand New Day, also starring Holland and Zendaya, opened on July 31. Critical response reviews of The Odyssey were overwhelmingly positive, with a number of critics ranking it among the best films of 2026 and, in several cases, among the strongest entries in Nolan's filmography. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film debuted with a critic's score in the mid-90s% range, reported variously between 94 and 96% depending on the review count at a given moment, which stood as the highest rated film of Nolan's career at the time of release. tying or surpassing earlier high water marks set by Memento, Insomnia, The Dark Knight, Dunkirk, and Oppenheimer. Audience scores tracked even higher, with the film registering a 97% fresh rating from general audience polling, described by some outlets as a new record for the director among mainstream audience response. Critics writing early reviews frequently praised the film's scale, ambition, and emotional grounding. Several described it as one of the greatest epic fantasy films ever made, distinguished from earlier entries in the genre by the strength and intimacy of its central performances. One reviewer for The Hard Pass called it Site Index equals 10-1, Nolan's crowning achievement. Writing for Inverse, critic Howie Tran similarly praised the film as a triumph for the director. In Session Films, M.N. Miller argued that the film marked a genuine departure from anything Nolan had made previously, framing it as one of the finest epic fantasy films yet produced. The Independent's Clarice Loffrey went further still, suggesting the film represented Nolan's best work to date and one that could come to define his career. Not every notice was uncomplicated praise. One review from Big Gold Belt Media described the film as more admirable than lovable, a technically extraordinary journey that nonetheless never fully carried the viewer away. Variety's review characterized the film as a genuinely grand and audacious achievement, noting that it delivers a steady stream of large-scale set pieces throughout its nearly 3-hour runtime, any one of which would stand as a highlight in a lesser studio blockbuster. The review observed that Nolan's script, while simplifying and modernizing Homer's language, preserves the scale and mythological weight of the original story, and it noted the director's characteristic use of a non-linear timeline likened to Penelope's practice of weaving and unweaving her father-in-law's shroud in the original text. The same review suggested the film succeeds more fully in generating tension around Odysseus' survival during the journey itself than in generating emotional investment in his eventual homecoming to Hathaway's Penelope. Writing for Forbes, critic Eric Kine described the Odyssey as bold, visually striking, and artistically distinctive in its treatment of Homer's material, calling it worth seeing despite some flaws. And he highlighted a particularly unsettling sequence depicting Circe's transformation of Odysseus' crew as a standout moment of unease within the film. The Los Angeles Times' Amy Nicholson praised the boldness of Nolan's adaptation choices, observing that the director reshapes and combines material from both Homer and Virgil into a story fixate on memory, identity, and the passage of time, themes recognizable across much of Nolan's other work. On review aggregation coverage, one Spanish language critic awarded the film a score of 85 out of 100, singling out Nolan's prodigious and varied camera work, including his frequent shifts in angle, height, and shot size, as a means of heightening scale and tension throughout the film. Coverage was not entirely without criticism on matters beyond pure craft. One aggregated critic gave the film a middling grade, arguing that despite an inclusive supporting cast, the film's leading roles remained reserved for white actors, and that the production notably excluded Greek talent from a story rooted specifically in Greek cultural tradition, an echo of broader debates that had also touched the film's costume design and shooting locations earlier in its production. Some reviewers also weighed the film against genre precedents, with one outlet noting that Nolan managed to steer his adaptation between the more bombastic, fight-driven tone of earlier sword and sandal films like 300 and a drier, more academic rendering of the material, striking a balance that this particular critic found satisfying even if not universally so among all reviewers. Trade outlet Rotten Tomatoes' own editorial team summarized the reception by noting that the film had achieved the highest tomatometer score of Nolan's career at that point, placing it alongside Memento, Insomnia, The Dark Knight, Dunkirk, and Oppenheimer as the sixth Nolan film to cross the 90% threshold with critics. Taken together, the reception of the Odyssey in its opening days combined strong critical enthusiasm, record-setting audience approval scores for a Nolan release, and a smaller but notable thread of criticism concerning casting and representation given the film's subject matter. Debates that echoed concerns first raised during the film's production, when its shooting location in Western Sahara and its costume design had already generated controversy well before the film reached theaters. Reviews number one, Christopher Nolan's adaptation of Homer's Greek epic, The Odyssey, is well epic. Releasing in theaters July 17, Nolan's latest film reimagines the famous Greek tale of Odysseus, starring Matt Damon as the king of Ithaca after teaching the Trojans that maybe you should look a giant wooden gift horse in the mouth. Odysseus and his soldiers must embark on a long, treacherous journey, i.e., an odyssey to get back home. The harrowing trip back to Ithaca is fraught with storms, monsters, and plenty of twists as Odysseus is plagued by memories of the Trojan War and visions of the goddess Athena, played by Zendaya. Meanwhile, back in Ithaca, Anne Hathaway plays Odysseus' wife Penelope, who's trying to keep the peace in her home and must fend off a horde of would-be suitors with the help of her son Telemachus, played by Tom Holland. The supporting cast is a who's who of Hollywood stars, including several of Nolan's past collaborators like Robert Pattinson, Elliot Page, Benny Safdie, and Himesh Patel, plus John Bernthal, Charlize Theron, John Leguizamo, Lupita Nyong'o, and more. Here is a breakdown of the key characters and the actors who play gods, monsters, and men. Matt Damon, Good Will Hunting, the Martian stars as the eponymous Odysseus. Homer's epic follows the aftermath of the Trojan War as Odysseus and his men attempt to return home to Ithaca. Along the way, he encounters a full cast of Greek gods and monsters, including Goddess of Wisdom and War Athena Genjendaya, the sorceress Circe, Samantha Morton, sea nymph Calypso, Charlize Theron, and Cyclops Polyphemus Bill Irwin. This is Damon's third collaboration with Christopher Nolan after Interstellar and Oppenheimer. But his first as the central character, Tom Holland is Telemachus, the son Odysseus barely knew before leaving for Troy. Now almost of age, Telemachus is conflicted. Does he believe his mother Penelope that his father, who he so desperately wants to know, is still alive and coming home to claim his throne? Or does he listen to the travelers who have heard no news of Odysseus and attempt to ascend to the throne of Ithaca himself to protect his mother from the scoundrel suitors? Holland also stars alongside fellow The Odyssey cast members Zendaya, Athena, and John Bernthal Menelaus in Spider-Man Brand New Day, which hits theaters July 31. The steadfast queen of Ithaca is played by Anne Hathaway. As she waits for Odysseus to return from Troy, she fends off the increasingly rabid suitors invoking Zeus's law of hospitality to gorge themselves on the palace food and wine and force her to choose one of them as her husband. Hathaway's film credits include The Devil Wears Prada and previous Nolan collaborations The Dark Knight Rises and Interstellar. Robert Pattinson is the conniving suitor Antinous who plots for control of Ithaca in Odysseus' absence. He has an affair with Melantho, mocks Eumaeus, threatens Telemachus, and generally debauches the palace in his attempt to win Penelope's hand. Pattinson's other film credits include The Batman, The Drama, and Nolan's Tenet. Zendaya stars as the goddess of wisdom Athena, also the goddess of strategic warfare. Athena opposes the lawless actions the soldiers exhibited during the Battle of Troy and frequently visits Odysseus on his journey home to remind him of the cruelty which goes against Zeus' law. The actress got her start on Disney Channel and quickly rose to fame in HBO's Euphoria, which earned her 2 Emmys and a third nomination for the upcoming award show. She is currently starring in the Spider-Man and Dune franchises, both of which have new films premiering this year. Her additional credits include The Drama, alongside co-star Robert Pattinson, Challengers, and The Greatest Showman. Benny Safdie returns to collaborate with Christopher Nolan after previously starring in Oppenheimer. The actor and filmmaker plays Agamemnon, the king of Mycenae, who led the Greeks to victory in the Trojan War. While he believed he'd be welcomed home as a hero, his wife Clytemnestra had other plans and a desire for vengeance in store. Safdie previously directed Daddy Longlegs and Uncut Gems with his brother, and he was also featured in Paul Thomas Anderson's Licorice Pizza. The king of Sparta is played by John Bernthal. Menelaus is the brother of Agamemnon and husband of Helen of Troy, whose beauty and abduction started the Trojan War. The king fought alongside Odysseus and tells Telemachus old stories of them in battle while celebrating his daughter's wedding alongside his wife. Bernthal previously starred in The Punisher and will appear in Spider-Man. Brand New Day, alongside co-stars Tom Holland and Zendaya, Lupita Nyong'o pulls double duty in Nolan's epic adaptation. As Helen of Troy, wife of King Menelaus of Sparta, John Bernthal, she takes up the mantle of the face that launched one ships. Translations of the Greek epic differ on if she was kidnapped by or eloped with Prince Paris of Troy, but her departure kick-started the decade-long conflict between the Greeks and Trojans, and as Clytemnestra, Nyong'o is Helen's sister and wife of Agamemnon, the king of Mycenae who commanded the Greek army during the Trojan War. Translations again differ on the level of her involvement, but Clytemnestra plays a role in her husband's fate after his triumphant return. Nyong'o is an Academy Award winner for her role in 12 Years a Slave. Her other credits include Black Panther and Use, where she also plays a dual role. Elliot Page reunites with Nolan after starring in Inception back in 2010 alongside Cillian Murphy and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Page portrays Sinon, a Greek soldier who plays a crucial role in the Trojan horse plan and helping mislead the Trojans. Sinon is not mentioned in Homer's original text, but his story is told in Virgil's poem Aeneid. Page had his breakout role in the coming-of-age comedy Juno, which earned him an Oscar nomination back in 2008. Odysseus' journey wouldn't be complete without his second-in-command Eurylochus, who frequently challenges him about his treatment of the army. Patel led Danny Boyle's 2019 musical drama Yesterday alongside Lily James and appeared in Nolan's thriller Tenet, in addition to Don't Look Up, Station 11, Enola Holmes 2, Black Mirror, The Franchise, and Bait. Next, he will lead Oscar winner Ryan Coogler's highly anticipated X-Files reboot for Hulu. John Leguizamo Bor plays Eumaeus, a nearly blind swineherd who's fiercely loyal to Odysseus even when everybody believed the hero wouldn't return. When Odysseus ultimately arrived home after decades away, Eumaeus was the first person he sought. Leguizamo previously starred in Encanto and Moulin Rouge, and he also voiced Sid the Sloth in the Ice Age franchise. Bill Lurvin plays Polyphemus, the one-eyed Cyclops and son of Poseidon, who is blinded by Odysseus and his men in their attempt to escape the giant's cave. Irvin previously worked with Nolan on Interstellar, where he voiced and operated the robot Tars. His additional credits include Rachel Getting Married and Jim Carrey's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Samantha Morton plays Circe, the Greek goddess with the power to transform humans into animals. Not that Odysseus' men know all the details when they turn up at her cottage on the island of Aeaea, desperate for food. In Homer's classic novel, she turns Odysseus' men into pigs. Morton is an Oscar-nominated actor for her work in Sweet and Lowdown and in America, both which released in the early 2000s. She also scored an Emmy nod for the TV movie Longford, directed by Tom Hooper. Additional credits include Morvan Kalar, Minority Report, Synecdoche, New York, She Said the Whale, and Anemone. Charlize Theron, the Devil's Advocate, Mad Max Fury Road plays Calypso, a sea nymph who tricks Odysseus into staying on her island for years. Although initially acting out of a desire to heal the hero physically, Calypso becomes infatuated with Odysseus and delays his departure for as long as she can. Theron earned an Academy Award, Golden Globe, and SAG Award for her role in Monster and also starred in North Country and Young Adult. Straight Outta Compton Crime 101 Second star Corey Hawkins plays Polybus, one of Penelope's suitors who works closely alongside the conniving Antinous. Hawkins earned an Emmy nod for his work in the limited series Survive, which released in 2020. Additional credits include Iron Man 3, Kong Skull Island, The Tragedy of Macbeth, The Color Purple, and In the Heights. The horror scream queen, known for Pearl and X, makes a brief but memorable appearance as Melando, one of Queen Penelope's slaves who sleeps with her suitors. In the film, she deceives Penelope by working with the power-hungry Antinous, who wishes to wed Penelope and become the new king of Ithaca. Outside of her work with T. West, Goth's horror credits include Frankenstein, Infinity Pool, and A Cure for Wellness, and next year she will appear in Sean Levy's Star Wars Starfighter movie alongside Ryan Gosling. Logan Marshall Green appears as Melanthius, a slave and servant of Queen Penelope who mocks Odysseus when he returns to Ithaca in disguise. Marshall Green starred in Lee Whannell's 2018 thriller Upgrade. TV credits include Law and Order 24, The OC, When They See Us, and most recently Marshall's. It only makes sense that the Odyssey, an epic poem in both senses of the word, opens with a bard, an ancient Greek poet and storyteller, telling the tale of Odysseus. Travis Scott makes his acting debut as the bard in Nolan's adaptation and is the first figure and voice on screen. Nolan, who previously collaborated with Scott on music for Tenet 2020, credited this casting as a way to link the tradition of oral storytelling with the lyricism of modern rap. Scott also closes the film on the end credits track, When I'm Home, which he co wrote after playing US. Secretary of War Henry Stimson in the Oscar-winning Oppenheimer, James Remar reunites with Nolan just 2 years later for The Odyssey. He plays Tiresias, the blind prophet whom Odysseus visits in hell, ultimately guiding him back to Ithaca to reunite with his son. Remar's nearly 200 credits date back to the 70s, with roles in The Warriors, Drugstore Cowboy, Fatal Instinct, Mortal Kombat, Annihilation, Sex, and The City. Criminal Minds, X-Men First Class, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Megalopolis, and It, Welcome to Derry.